Thank you for joining us. Just a few housekeeping items. Everyone's mic is muted. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, kindly type those into the chat area and I will try to keep an eye on those. We also have a moderator that's watching that as well. If I happen to not catch them as I'm going through the presentation, I can get to them at the end and answer those questions. So let's go ahead and get started here. My name is Brian. I'm the CTO here at PCA Technology Group. I'm also an ethical hacker. And basically all that means is all this stuff that I'm talking about, I know how to do. Obviously to talk intelligently about it and also be able to recommend safety procedures for end users on how to avoid this stuff. You have to know how to kind of do it. So that's just a little bit about me. Biggest question is, why are we worried about cybersecurity? Well, a lot of reasons, actually. From a statistics side, if you look at the slide here, 2022 saw an increase of about 38% in cyber attacks over 2021. Obviously those numbers can be driven by a bunch of different things. A lot of these breaches and hacks and things that are going on nowadays aren't always from the big hacker gangs or the ransomware gangs that are out there. Many of the folks that are doing these kind of things, even at a smaller side, individuals even, are realizing there's some profitability in this. Obviously there's a risk too, but there's some profitability in possibly doing this. So they're taking the chance as individuals, perhaps, in doing this. They're also focusing more on remote workers. With COVID, that definitely pushed the workforce to a more remote work area. And while there is convenience with that, and there is some cost savings, there also is some increased risks with that, obviously. Where before, if you're a client of ours, all you had to worry about was the four walls of the office building, because pretty much everybody worked from inside that office building. So it was much easier to secure, where now you've got, maybe half your workforce or 3/4 of your workforce, 90% of your workforce, or all your workforce maybe working from home, which, obviously is much more difficult to manage because we don't manage home networks for every individual here. So, if you have an insecure network at home and you happen to be VPNing in to work resources, technically that could potentially spell trouble. So, the bad guys realize that a lot of those layers aren't in place anymore because of that workforce. And they're also going after educational facilities, colleges and things like that, or healthcare organizations, which I have that actually bothers me with the healthcare thing. All the other companies, I'm not saying aren't valid, but when you start messing with healthcare and hospitals and things like that, you really are messing potentially with people's lives at that point. Because if you're shutting down things that they need access to, medications and things like that, that's a real problem that sits with me, unfortunately, and there's not much you can do about it. But hopefully, with this presentation, we can at least, if anybody is healthcare that's joining this, hopefully we can avoid some of those potential pitfalls. The other thing too is HIPAA compliance, compliance issues, PCI, SOC, DFS, whatever may apply to your business or company. And New York State SHIELD Act obviously applies to every company if you do business in New York State. So you need to make sure that you are following those compliance procedures. Otherwise, if you get a breach and the state comes back and says, well, were you compliant with New York State SHIELD Act? Well, no, you weren't. Well, guess what? Now you're getting additional fines on top of all the other mess that you have to deal with. The other thing too is you can see there's a lot of big company logos that are posted on the right side of this screen here. You got Google, you got PayPal, you got Slack, Reddit, T-Mobile, MailChimp, and LastPass. These are all companies that have been breached this year, either in the late December or this year alone. So these are very, very large companies. This is just a small piece of the pie of what did get breached, but these are pretty well known breaches out there, and we'll touch more on a little bit of a few of them later on down the road here. But these are ones that have just recently been breached this year. So. Excuse me. The other thing to keep in mind here is that, if a bad guy does happen to get into your system somehow or breach your system, it's not like they normally throw up all kinds of alarm bells or taunt you or anything like that. Usually the case is they're in your systems potentially up to 7 months. What are they doing in there? They're in there looking around. First of all, they're probably trying to figure out who they got. Because many times these type of attacks aren't physically targeting your company or you as an individual. It's just you happen to fall victim to whatever tactic that they used, and that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to figure out, okay, first of all, someone took the bait. What do I have here? Think of it as fishing and reeling in. You have a fish on the other end, but you don't know what kind of fish it is until you get it to the boat and out of the water. It's kind of the same deal here. The 7 months period is really them reeling in whatever took the bait at the other end, trying to figure out. They're also trying to figure out, is there anything valuable here? Once they know the company, what is valuable here? Is there private information? Is there any type of private business information that they could use? Credit card information, healthcare information, social security card, all that stuff is sellable and valid for sale on the dark web, and many times that's what they're going after. And then once they determine what is valuable, or if they can find nothing that's valuable, more likely than not, they'll either take the valuable stuff off your network, they'll exfiltrate it off the network, and post it on the dark web for sale, or they will ransomware you, which is basically locking your data to the point where you can't use it. And the only way you can get it back is if you have a very good backup system, or you pay whatever the amount of money is that they're telling you to pay or asking you to pay to unlock that data. They will then, provide the key to unlock that data for you so you can access it again. And sometimes they do both. Sometimes they steal your data and try to sell it on the internet or the dark web, and then they also ransomware you. So they try to get you at both sides. So obviously the idea here is to try to avoid falling into these traps to begin with. Who's responsible? Pretty much everybody that's on this call right now. A lot of times people think that, oh, well, it's my IT department, it's the owners of the company, it's my IT provider, or whatever. Ultimately, almost every one of those hacks, 95% of those hacks that happen on that first page there for those big companies happen because an individual on the inside let them in inadvertently. So that's why everybody on this call is responsible, because 9 times out of 10, that's somebody is going to let them in the front door. We like to call it the human firewall. And the idea is that you need to be questioning things. You need to not just be blindly clicking on things. You need to not be blindly opening things or downloading things and things of that nature. And we'll talk more about what that looks like as we go into the presentation here. So how does all this happen? Again, it's simple manipulation. Honestly, that's all it is. It's called social engineering, and it's just basically manipulating the tendency of human nature. It's extremely easy to do, and you don't even realize it's happening sometimes. A perfect example of this is honestly, if I want you to want to entice you to click on something on your computer screen. And the easiest way for me to do that is okay, let's say I want you to click a specific window that by itself you would probably pick up very quickly. However, if I throw 30 or 40 adult-oriented pop-up windows on your screen, especially if you're on work, you're going to panic because you don't want your coworkers to see this stuff. You don't know what's going on. You just start blindly clicking close. And while you're clicking on all those close things, I happen to throw up the window that I want you to click, and you just clicked it. That's exactly how easy it is. It's just pure manipulation. I put you in a fear state. You don't think rationally at that point, and you just start blindly clicking on things, and I got you. It's literally that simple. That's just one particular instance of it. But we'll talk about more of how some of this stuff works. The one thing to keep in mind is that with social engineering, 90 to 95% of the social engineering attacks happen via email. So we're going to spend a lot of time on email here, but the first thing here that we're going to cover is just kind of showing you some of the most common attacks. As I mentioned, email is the top one. There's phishing, there's spear phishing, there's BEC, which stands for business email compromise. And basically what that means is they try to breach either an individual or an organization and try to use some previous conversations that you may have had with vendors or other business partners and things like that to try to get other people roped into this whole phishing scam that the bad guys are doing. So, it's easy, unfortunately, to fall for that kind of thing because they're already using pre-existing conversations that don't look suspicious. So it's a little harder to detect those, but that happens a lot. The other thing is social media. Social media is a treasure trove for reconnaissance. If I want to know something specific, once I'm in a system about who those people are, I'm going right to social media because everybody posts everything about their lives there. And regardless whether it's Facebook, whether it's Instagram, Twitter, could even be LinkedIn. I'll get full business employee lists from LinkedIn because most companies use that as part of their thing, and most of the followers are employees. So that is a true way of getting big time social reconnaissance on pretty much anybody really. The other thing too with the social engineering that I mentioned, on Facebook specifically, you may think you're harmlessly answering some of these surveys that go around coming from your friends and this and that. And the surveys I'm talking about is like, oh, out of this list of 4 colors, what color would you pick? What was your high school mascot, or what high school did you graduate from, or whatever. Just some of these surveys that go around the internet all the time, or who was your favorite teacher in elementary school, and things like that. You think you're just harmlessly answering those questions through a survey, but what you don't realize is regardless where that survey came from, that survey is recording the answers. And it may be from a malicious entity, and what you're actually doing is giving away your password reset information. You may not know that because 90% of the questions that they're asking you are password reset answers. So they may be trying to breach your account and try to reset your password by using the information that's in that. So it's just something to be aware of. Again, it's manipulating people in a way that they don't even realize they're being manipulated. And if you have small children and things like that, I know as a parent myself, back when my kids were young enough to go through this, I obviously stay off of social media, but the posting your child's first day of school, regardless what grade they're in, whether it's they're just starting out or whether they're going into second grade, this and that. I've seen the little posts with chalkboards that show all the information. Oh, their favorite food is this. Oh, their favorite color is this. Oh, and their second grade teacher, because they're going into second grade, is this. Again, what you probably don't realize is you're giving away password information that is probably going to be valid for them when they get old enough to use it, because they're not going to change their favorite food. Usually their second grade teacher isn't going to change. Their favorite color is going to be the same later on down the road. So you're really giving up password reset information for your child before they're even old enough to use it. Not to mention there's a lot of predators as well on Facebook too. But so just be careful what you're posting on social media. That's the biggest thing. Trends, who's behind this? A lot of it is criminal groups, malicious insiders. Sometimes it's that's become more of a thing now than it used to be. Just keep in mind that obviously most of the time this happened at actually in Amazon. There was a malicious insider that the hackers convinced that, oh, well, you give us access to your systems and we'll give you a piece of the pie, and whatever money we get, we'll give you a piece of that action, whatever. Unfortunately for that individual, it didn't work out very well for him, because now they're in a federal prison because they committed a federal crime, but they also didn't get anything out of it besides jail time. So just something else to keep in mind. Terrorists as well, potentially third world countries. Sometimes their governments actually realize this is a profitable business model, so they use this as a potential income method. We already mentioned about, you know, what is it? It could be ransomware, it could be extortion. The other thing too is the skill sets to do some of this is not always not what it used to be. So the people that really know how to do this stuff realize that they could make money without actually doing it themselves. So what they do is they create tools and automation that they then rent out to what's called script kiddies, or people that really don't necessarily know how to do this on their own. And they just rent the tools out. They pay these folks a monthly fee, and they pretty much run it for them and give them a piece of the action that's enticing enough that they get a business model out of this too. So, you know, it's not just some well-versed hacker in their basement or wherever they're working out of doing this anymore. It could be somebody, you know, that you wouldn't even realize would be doing it. Most of the time, the attacks are cloud or mobile. Very, very rarely are they physically on site. That's unusual unless it is a malicious insider, or if you are a government entity, sometimes that will end up with a physical on-site type of attack as well. So web surfing, let's start out with that first. So the web surfing side of things, what I recommend is if you are not if you're not doing business-oriented website surfing, you should not be doing it then on work resources. So the idea is obviously keep your website surfing limited to business use, and that will definitely lower your attack vector or potential exposure by doing that. You know, don't be surfing Facebook and things like that. If you unless you use it as a business advertising or business marketing thing. I know some companies do that, and that's fine. You just got to be careful what you're doing. But yeah, you don't want to be checking your personal Facebook account or things of that nature while you're connected to work resources. You also want to make sure that your browsers are kept up to date. That's your Firefoxes, your Chromes, your Edge. Most of those browsers are pretty good nowadays about notifying you that there is an update. If you get that, make sure you apply those updates, because the bad guys do leverage some of those holes that are probably being patched, and it just makes, again, it lowers your attack vector and risk behind that. Suspicious pop-ups, we kind of touched a little bit on that. Most of the browsers nowadays do have automated pop-up blockers built into them, so hopefully they do a good job at stopping most of this. However, there are certain situations where you may end up with a pop-up window that, you know, if you're not sure if you should be closing it out. So what happens is the bad guys know you're going to click on one of those two areas. It's either the Xbox at the top of the right-hand corner or the close button, however they display that button. They know you're going to click on one of those two areas. If that's a malicious pop-up, what they will do is they will put what's called a pop under. And what that is, it's another window that's underneath that pop-up that you're seeing on your screen, but it's hidden behind it. And then when you click on one of those two areas, it actually captures that click and downloads something in the background while it closes out that top window. So it's kind of a layover type thing that you can't really see. So you could potentially download something by closing out that window if you're on a malicious site. So I'm not saying this happens all the time, but if you're on a site that you're not familiar with and you're getting a pop-up window that looks kind of weird, you're not sure, what you can do, instead of clicking on the actual spots to close that window out, you could hit Control-W on your keyboard, or you could hit Alt-F4. What that'll do, Control-W usually closes the window down with focus, which is usually that pop-up window, or Alt-F4 will actually close your entire browser down. So it will avoid you having to click on one of those pop-up areas if you think it could be suspicious. And this does work across all platforms when it comes to Mac or Windows type things. Now, I do get questions on this. What about mobile phones? Well, that's a little harder because every single phone is set up a little differently. So the only thing I could say is you'll probably have to end the task of the browser to get out of that, so you're not clicking on it, or try to avoid any type of surfing on your phone the best you can. Another tactic that the bad guys are using is first of all, this leverages a couple different things. So first of all, they know that the bad guys realize that people don't like to have multiple passwords for multiple sites because it's difficult to track, difficult to store, difficult to keep track of everything. So what they know is that many people are starting to rely on something called SSO, which stands for single sign-on. So what that does is it will potentially allow another site, if it's hooked into it, allow another site to potentially use an existing login that you already have. So it could be, in this case, it could be a Microsoft, it could be a Facebook, an Apple, a Google, Discord, Steam, something like that. So when you go to a site and it asks you to sign up for the site or something, it will allow you to use potentially one of those other logins that you already know to authenticate to this site. So it'll allow you to do that. So technically you're using one of your other logins to log into this site. So you're only remembering, certain ones. The problem is that the bad guys know that people like to do this. So what they've done is they've created fake versions of these that when you put your information in there for those other sites, it's actually recording it and sending it to the bad guys. So in essence, it's allowing you to authenticate to the site with that, but it's also sending it to the bad guys so they could reuse it later down the road. The biggest problem with this is visually, it is extremely difficult to detect and it's extremely easy to fall for. So let me show you some examples of that. So this screen here, obviously you can tell which one's the bad one and which one's the real one. But if you look at those side by side, literally side by side, the way they're set up, they look identical. The only thing, even if you click on the padlocks here, that will show that it's Facebook. This will show it's the exact same Facebook. If you actually look at this entire URL, it matches the same thing on the real one. So visually, there's absolutely no way you could tell the difference between the fake version here and the real version. It's designed that way. I will tell you how you can tell here shortly, but I'm just showing you examples that visually you're never going to be able to tell. Here's another version of it. This is using Google. Now in this one, there is one slight difference, but it probably wouldn't really raise any red flags unless you're looking at them side by side like we are here. But the phishing one does have that create an account, but that normally wouldn't throw any red flags, and it would actually point to Google as well. So it's not going to send you to a fake link or anything. All these links are sent to the exact same spot that these are. Exact same thing up here. You click that lock, it'll match the exact same thing it's on this lock, and this URL matches this URL to a T. So again, visually, there's no way you're going to be able to tell the difference between a fake version of this and a real version of this if you happen to come across it in the wild. So how can you tell? There's an easy way to do it. If you're going to use a site that is going to try to use an existing single sign-on like one of these here, I'm just using Facebook and Google as an example here, but there's other ones that will allow you to do it too. What I want you to do is when this comes up and asks you to put your information in here, what I want you to do is grab this top bar, and I want you to right-click on it, and I want you to try to drag it literally off the screen, outside of your browser window. If it actually opens outside, if it lets you drag it off the browser window and onto your desktop basically as a separate window, that is the real site. If you try to do that with the phishing version of this, it's going to stop at the border of your screen on the browser. It's not going to let you break out of the browser with that drag. And that's because the way they're displaying this, think of it as a picture frame. It's not letting that picture leave the frame, where the real one doesn't have the frame around it, so it lets it break out of that. That's the easiest way to tell, and really the only way to tell without getting too far into the technicality of how this all works. But if you drag that window off the screen and it's on the real version of it, it will allow you to actually break out of the browser window. Where the fake one, it will literally stop and it won't let you go off the screen. So that's how you can tell the difference between the real one and the fake one if you decide to use single sign-on. Me personally, I would recommend using email to sign up for all these sites. Yes, I know you have to remember individual logins and all that other good stuff, but that's the safest way, because if your account ever got breached, In this case, you're losing your entire Google account or Facebook account if you're using that. So it's just, and you would only lose the account that you're signing up to the site with your email at that point, as long as you keep, your passwords and stuff different. So, which leads us into email. So we're going to spend a bunch of time in email because, like I said, this is typically where the bad guys definitely use a lot of their tactics. So right off the bat, much like web surfing, don't use your work email for personal usage. What do I mean by that? That means keep it for business use only. Keep your personal stuff out of business. If that means you don't sign up for coupon clubs, you don't sign up for your Amazon purchases, don't use it for eBay, don't use it for PayPal, don't use it for your banking, don't use it for any of that stuff. Because a lot of the tactics the bad guys use is sending you stuff that is oriented for those type of transactions. So if you don't do your Amazon shopping on your work email and you see one of those come into your work email, you don't even have to think twice about it because I don't do any Amazon shopping on my business email. You just delete it instantly. You don't even have to look at it and think about it. You just delete it. Shipping notices. If you're not getting anything from eBay or whatever, send it. If you're not in HR, why would you be getting a resume? Things of that nature. You got to use some common sense when it comes to what is coming in and out of your emails. But if you separate your personal usage from your work email, that will definitely limit a lot of that exposure to some of those tactics. Now, if you do use some of those, maybe you do buy your office supplies through Amazon or whatever. You just got to be careful and try to keep track of what it is that was ordered and what you expect to be coming in. And then kind of, again, if you manually kind of keep track of what you think is coming in and not, that at least will allow you to, okay, so I got to be on the lookout right now because it happens to be, I'm expecting a shipment, but oh, my shipment's already arrived. Why am I getting a shipment notice from DHL saying I've got a package coming? Well, you probably don't. It's probably a fake thing that the bad guys are trying to get you to open something up. So the other thing too is don't access your personal email from your work PCs because it's almost the same thing as if you're mixing or if you're sharing your work email. It's the exact same thing, especially if you're doing it from a work PC. So stay away from that. The other thing I like to recommend, if anybody is using Outlook as their email client, turning off, they now call it reading pane. That used to be called preview pane. Regardless what it's called, I highly recommend you turn that off. And basically that's this section here that shows you the email contents without you physically opening it. So what happens is every email that comes into the top here, into Outlook, it gets opened up automatically by this feature and shows you the contents of that email. Well, great. I don't have to double click an email to open it. Well, that's one problem because I want you to be the one interacting with your email, not some automated utility like this. The other thing that you're maybe not realizing is let's say the bad guys are sending emails out to try to figure out if they can get anybody. First of all, is the email address good? And second of all, is there anybody that's going to open it up? Well, what they do is just like the marketing folks do, they hide hidden images in these emails. And when you open the email up, it sends a tracking code back to the people saying, oh, it's been opened because it accessed that hidden image. The bad guys do the same thing. This thing is literally opening up every single email that comes to the top through your message. So they could tell you whether you open it up or not. And now they know they got a live email address, and then they're going to start spam bombing you with other stuff. The other thing is it could contain a malicious payload that maybe it will activate when it gets through all the layers of defenses somehow, and this thing opens it up. And now that malicious payload is running until you realize that, oh, wait, what is this email? Oh, my gosh, I would have never opened that email. The easiest way to avoid it, turn it off, okay? Yeah, you lose the convenience of it, but you gain in safety. So to do that, you just go to the View tab up here. You can see the reading pane is highlighted here. If you click on that down arrow, it will actually show, I think it's off right or bottom right and off. You want to select off, and what will happen is this pane here on the right-hand side will go away. The middle column will expand out to the edge of that now. And to open your emails, you're going to have to double click them, which is exactly what you want. You want to be able to visually inspect these emails before you're just blindly opening them. Again, oh, look, there's a PayPal shipping notice or a PayPal payment. Wait, I don't do that in my email. You're not opening it. You're going to delete it. You don't even have to open it, or this would open it. So just keep that in mind. Here's an example of a phishing email, and this is a common one. Looks like it's coming from Microsoft, though it isn't, and it's designed to look like it's coming from Microsoft. So what they do is they send you an email saying your password is expiring, and I want you to click on one of these handy, convenient links that I'm going to include in my email address or in my email here, so you can easily change your password. Again, human manipulation, social engineering at its finest. Oh my gosh, my password is expiring. I can't live without my email. Oh, well, great. I don't have to go do this myself. I'll just click on one of these handy links right here to change my password. They got you. What happens? You click on one of these links. It's going to send you to a website that looks like Microsoft. It's going to ask you for your login credentials. And if you happen to put them in there and don't necessarily pay attention, what it's going to do, it's probably one of two things is going to happen, depending on how good the person at the other end that set this fake site up is. One thing will happen, obviously it's going to error out because it's not the real Microsoft site, so it's not going to work, but it will email what you typed in there to the bad guys. And on the ones that don't necessarily think this through, it's going to continually error because it's never going to work because it's a fake site that's set up to steal your credentials. What the smarter guys do is they will let you do that one time, and then they will refresh the screen, but they will refresh the screen to the right Microsoft site. And if you're not paying attention, you're not going to necessarily see that the site changed that well. And the second time you put your credentials in there, it's going to work, and you're not necessarily going to think anything about it the first time. You're just going to think, oh, I must have mistyped my password or something the first time around. But in essence, the first time, again, you sent your credentials to the bad guys. So what I want you to do is if you get one of these emails, and again, my recommendation, don't click on any links that are embedded in emails. None. What I want you to do instead, if you think this is coming from Microsoft Outlook, great. What I want you to do is go down to your browser, open up a brand new browser, whether it's Edge, Firefox, Chrome, Safari, whatever your choice of browser is. I want you to go to Microsoft's site yourself, log in.microsoftonline.com. You type it into the browser, then you put your credentials in there because you know you got to the right site because you typed it yourself. So now you know you're on the correct Microsoft site. The other thing, too, to keep in mind is if you are a Microsoft 365 client of ours, a PCA, if we manage your network and you're in a Microsoft 365 client, what you will see is once you put your email address in on whatever, into that Microsoft site, the second screen will show up and it should ask you for your password. If you do not see your company logo on that password screen, on the screen that's asking for the password, I would be very cautious of putting your password in there because all of our clients that are configured on M365 will have their client logos painted on that screen. So that's also another visual thing that you can look for to bypass any potential fake sites and things like that. This is just another example of it. This one's going after and pretending to be a bank. Again, you get this email saying, oh, well, someone's tried to pull money out of your account in another country. Please click on this handy, convenient link that I'm going to include. And we'll make sure that this is valid or not valid. Again, if you are a trusted bank customer, in this case, don't click on that link. I want you to open up an email in a browser, type in trustedbank.com yourself. That way you know you're getting to the right Trusted Bank site, and then log in with your credential. And somewhere in your message system there, if you are a customer of that bank, it will ask you to verify this if it's valid. So again, don't blindly click on these links. So in the previous ones, again, it was kind of like one of those scattershot things. They're throwing emails out there to see who falls for it. When it comes to spear phishing is a little more direct and a little more tactical. So this is usually targeting HR or payroll, and it's usually pretending to be an internal employee. So what they'll do is they'll reach out to HR, and they probably get these lists again off of LinkedIn, or even maybe your company website might have this information on that they're scraping and getting. Oh, well, here's an employee list, great. Or I call your number and your phone system tells me, I just go down through the phone prompts and get all the names of the people that are there, and I look them up in social media. There's so many easy ways to get all this information. But I get the information of an employee. I'll reach out to your HR and say, hey, why don't you change my direct deposit information? Here's the new information, and I want it done effective immediately. If you are a company that doesn't have procedures and policies in place to check the validity of this request, you are going to send someone's payroll paycheck to what's effectively a drop account that was set up probably using stolen identity at a bank. The minute that money hits that bank account, it's going to get emptied out and closed. And by the time you realize that, oh, wait, I just sent a paycheck to somebody else's account, and the employee comes looking for their paycheck, you're going to realize that it wasn't the employee that actually requested this. It was a bad guy pretending to be your employee. So you need to make sure that any type of these requests are not done physically, or are done physically, and not just simply through email. You need to verify in person with this request, get the person to sign off on, or verbally in front of you. Or if it is a remote worker or somebody that happens to work out of state, you need to contact them at a known phone number, not one that's transmitted in an email in this email conversation, because they could easily send you to somebody else's phone pretending to be this employee again. So you just don't blindly follow it. So that's how you avoid these type of things. Then there's whaling. Whaling is basically what it sounds like. It's going after the big fish or pretending to be the big fish and using fear as part of that tactic. So in this case here, this is a typical one. They pretend this is someone pretending to be the CFO, and they're reaching out to somebody internally, probably someone within their department or the finance department or somebody underneath them, saying, hey, I'm out of the office. I need you to process me a wire transfer today. Let me know, and I'll send you the details. Or the other good one is, I need you to go out and buy me some Amazon gift cards, eBay gift cards, or whatever type of gift cards the flavor of the month is that they ask for. That's another common tactic that is used. Again, if you are getting asked via email to do any type of financial transactions, and I don't care how small it is, you need to verify that it is actually the person making that request. Whether it's in person or, again, calling somebody at a number that is known for that individual. In this case, Sean should be reaching out to Roger at a known number, not one that is transmitted in this conversation, because, again, you've got to verify the validity of this request. And I've had some people say, well, how can I question my C-level person if they're asking me to do something? I don't know of many C-level folks that would get upset about you double checking just to make sure that this isn't a scam. I don't know many of them. In fact, they might thank you for it, because I know you're going to get in trouble if you actually follow through with this blindly and send $20,000-$30,000 wire transfer to somebody and it's gone. That's for sure. Or you go spend thousands of dollars on gift cards, realizing that you not only did it once, but you might have done it 2 or 3 times, thinking that, oh, I need more gift cards. I need more gift cards. If you fall for that, you're probably going to get in trouble. But it's very unlikely you're going to get in trouble for simply following procedures to make sure that financial transactions are going through some checks and validities to make sure that they are valid. So that's my take on that. So how can you avoid some of this stuff? Well, you can start out with a fairly easy process. So this is called an external banner. So what this does is this is a means to know that emails are coming from the outside. It'll paint this yellow banner on it and say, hey, you know what? This email has come from the outside. Now, there's an additional way you can do this too. You can prepend it to the subject line that maybe put external, and then the subject. But this is a visual way to show that an email is coming from the outside. So why is this important? Well, first of all, this isn't a paid thing. This is something that can be turned on if you are a Microsoft 365 user, email user. So this is something that can be activated, and most of our clients do have it activated. I would highly recommend keeping it at the top. Um, that way, it's the first thing you see in the message, so it definitely stands out. But why is this important? Well, in the previous cases, and we'll go back here, in the previous cases, let's say we're getting this email from what appears to be an internal employee. Well, guess what? This isn't an internal employee, it's someone pretending to be that. This email, if you had that banner activated, would have that banner literally right at the top here before it even got into the message. So if you see that banner on an email that is supposedly coming from someone inside your company or one of your coworkers, you better question it very, very hard, because if it was an internal person communicating with you on the inside, it would not have that email or that banner on it. The only way that would have that is if they're using their personal email or something, sending it in, but internal communications would not have that banner. And the same thing on this one. Sean, right above this, would have that banner because this isn't really somebody from the inside. It's someone from the outside pretending to be that. So it's just something to keep in mind that it's something that is visual, very easy to pick up. So you should question it. Oh wait, Sally from HR is telling me about a new company employee manual edition that I need to click on. Well, wait a minute, why does it have this external banner on it? Wait, I think this isn't right. So you should be questioning that. So the bad guys also realize that people are getting smart and starting to come on and pick up on a lot of their tactics. So what they're doing now is there's something called consent phishing. So what this is they're basically prompting you with app permissions, and they're putting this up, and basically what they're asking you to do is to accept this, is what they're trying to prompt you to do. And if you're not careful and you get one of these and you're not real careful and actually look and see what it does and you just blindly hit accept, effectively what you're doing is you are giving whoever created this malicious app full-blown access to your entire Microsoft ecosystem that is online. That basically means that it is an issue with you're giving them access to your Outlook, all your emails, all of your calendars, all of your OneDrive files, anything that's hosted up into the Microsoft ecosystem, you are basically giving them access to. And the other thing too, if you think multi-factor is going to help you with this, it doesn't do that either because it bypasses it. So you are basically giving them full-blown access to everything in Microsoft by hitting accept here. My recommendation, if you get one of these prompts where it's asking you for an application, is asking you for permissions, you need to, if you're a client of ours, call our help desk and we will remote in quickly and see if it's valid or not. There are some instances where integrations will ask for this type of stuff, but it's very rare that you would get one of these and it be valid. And we would sooner you take the 2 minutes that it's going to take to get us to remote in and take a quick peek at this versus blindly accepting this and realizing that you just got compromised by the bad guys. So just something to keep in mind. Quishing. So this became a thing, back with COVID, obviously helped this, but what this does is, again, it relies on the fact that people do kind of keep an eye on things a little better than what they used to. So what this is this will send you to a website without you being able to really view the website prior. So the idea is that you scan this code with your phone, and it's going to send you to a shortened URL that you're not really going to be able to tell where you go until you get there. So it's the idea is that it's going to try to trick you into going to a site or something with malicious intent, and you're not really going to know what's going on until you actually get to that point, and at that point it might be too late. So just keep in mind, be very, very careful with this. If I am specifically targeting an individual, I will, again, use Facebook or one of your social media sites. I'll figure out where your favorite restaurant is, and I'll go to that restaurant in hopes that, maybe I know you go there every Tuesday night because you post about it on Facebook every Tuesday night. So I know you're going to be at Joe's Bar and Grill or whatever it is. I'm going to go to Joe's Bar and Grill and I'm going to print one of these out that has malicious intent. I'm going to drop it on one of the tables or all of the tables. And by the time anybody realizes that they're not even real, I'm going to have a ton of victims and hopefully have you if I was physically targeting you. With restaurants being so short-staffed the way they are, it would take a fairly long time to realize that there is a malicious version of this sitting on a table versus somebody thinking it's just a touchless menu, which this is a valid reason for that. But I will tell you, in restaurants that I visit that have these touchless menus, I will ask for a paper menu if they have them. And if they don't have them, I will also verify that they are using the touchless menus here, and this is in fact theirs, where I'm not blindly scanning something with my phone, because I know they could be used for malicious intent. So, and just to give you an idea how easy it is to get people to scan these codes, well, anybody that watched the Super Bowl last year realized that now this was a harmless version, but one of the commercials during the Super Bowl last year was just one of these QR codes bouncing around the screen like Pong. It was a complete blank screen. I forget if it was a black screen with a white version of this or a white screen with the black version of this. I forget what it was, but it was literally just bouncing around the screen, just the code, no words, no nothing, just this code bouncing around the screen. And it was like a 30-second commercial. Over 1 million people literally took their phones out of their pockets or grabbed their phones and scanned this code during that commercial to see what it was. They just all got social engineered. It's actually absolute marketing genius because, again, it was completely harmless. But that just goes to show you how easy it is to trick people into scanning these things. Just throw this thing up there and people are, oh, what is that? Okay, well, I'm going to scan it. It's super easy to do. So just be cautious. That's all I'm saying. USB and mobile devices, you want to be cautious. USB are like the little flash drives. If you find one of those laying around and you don't know the owner of it, don't plug that thing into your machine. Hold on to it. Give it to one of our engineers that come on site. If you're a client of ours, we will scan it and make sure there's nothing malicious on it, and then give it back to you or try to figure out who the owner is if there is data on it. Because you could insert that into your PC and it could automatically run something or install something that was just waiting for it to be plugged in. So just be aware of that. If you do use those drives to transfer files back and forth, I know some architectural companies do this because those drawings are fairly large to email and things. Just make sure that you're doing virus checks on when you're putting the stuff on the drive and when you're receiving it at the other end to make sure nothing happens to be hitchhiking its way on that USB stick. Which leads me on to smartphones. Everyone has a smartphone pretty much nowadays. They're handy, but they are also known to be battery hogs at times. What the convenience of it is a lot of times people will take the charging cord and plug it in the one end into the phone, and usually the other end's a USB cable, and they will take that and plug it into their laptop or their desktop. While that will charge your phone, what you may not realize is it also turns your phone into a USB device. So if there's something on that phone that is just waiting to be plugged into a computer network, it could activate it the minute you plug it into a laptop or a desktop, and it could actually install something without you even realizing it. So just keep in mind, if you want to charge your phone, don't plug it into your laptop or your work PC. Bring your wall brick, which is the plug that goes into the wall. Use that to charge it, because if there happens to be something on there, it's not going to affect the electricity like it would your laptop. The other thing too is be aware that public charging stations. So these are stations that are set up out in the public. They could be at malls, they could be at hotel lobbies, airports sometimes have them, bookstores sometimes have them, coffee shops sometimes have them. Be cautious of this. Why? Well, there's something called juice jacking. As I just mentioned, the minute you plug your phone into one of these charging stations, it could be a malicious one, and it turns your phone into a USB. It's a USB device at that point. And a malicious version is basically going to steal all of the data off your phone while it's charging your phone. That means all of your pictures, all your contacts, all of your messages, all of your text messages, your emails, your appointments. It could suck all that stuff through while it's charging, and you may not even realize it. Now, there are some cables and stuff out there that will stop this or protect you from this, where they're only charge cables only. Again, the easiest way to stop or to avoid this, don't use public charging stations. Use your wall brick. They're small enough now that you could probably get away with it. And just, for women, it's a lot easier. You can throw it in your purses and stuff. And for men, you can either wait till you get to the car and charge it in your car, or some of the bricks are small enough you could put it in your pocket too without it being too intrusive. But just need to be aware that there's a lot of that stuff out there. So passwords. So we kind of touched a little bit about this. What is it with the password thing? Well, we want you to have complex, secure, and unique passwords. What does that mean? That means a password for every single site should be different than every other site you use. Why do we recommend that? Well, we recommend that because if one of those sites gets breached and you're reusing that password, now you've got to worry about changing that password everywhere else that it's used. Whereas if it's only on a single site, you only have to worry about that one there. So that's one reason. We also recommend making your passwords 10 characters at minimum. So they got to be 10 characters long. And anybody that's been in one of these before realizes that has gone up tremendously since last year. We started out at 7 characters at the beginning of last year. We also went to 9 about in the middle toward the end of the year. And now we're up to 10 this year. I will tell you by the middle of this year, that number will probably be up to 12 or 14. And I'll explain why here in a bit. It also needs to contain at least one special character. It also needs to contain at least an uppercase letter and at least one number. So it has to be 10 characters long and have at least one of all 3 of those criteria. So everyone on the call is probably like, well, this is exactly why I use the same password for every site I go to, because there's no way I'm going to be able to remember or keep track of every single password and do it. So how do we do that? Well, there's a couple of different ways we can do this. First of all, the most obvious way is to use an online password manager. I personally do not use online password managers. I also do not recommend online password managers simply because they are huge targets for the bad guys. The bad guys realize everyone's password is there, and so they are huge targets. There are about 5 big ones, well-known ones out there. Out of those 5, 3 have been breached at least twice, and 1 has been breached 4 times now. And if you recall from the first screen, LastPass is one of those that have been breached 4 times now. So if you're a LastPass user, you might want to think twice about that. And I'm also not comfortable with other people or entities knowing all my passwords. So how do I do it? I actually keep my passwords on my person. I basically store them on an encrypted USB key, USB drive. They're in a simple text file. So what does that mean? That means in order for me to get access to that file, that USB key, the minute I plug it in, I have to put a password in. That's the only password I have to remember. That password is a 24-digit password. I know what it is. And when I put that in there, I can open up that text file that I have in there, and my passwords are on that list. Now, I've done this before. I'm not going to do it during this one because we're running short on time, but I have actually opened that file during a presentation, and I have showed the complete entire web audience what that file looks like, because my passwords that are in there are not the true passwords to their entirety. So I also have some other things that I do. So you can do it in a couple of different ways. You can have known missing characters that on every single one of those passwords, in some pattern or another, there's missing characters. I know what those characters are. I know what that pattern is. However, someone looking at that file would have no clue what is missing, and they would just think that is the password. So they're going to try every single password on that list. It's not going to work because, again, they don't know what the missing parts are or where they are. And they're going to just give up and say, well, this password list isn't valid. It must be old, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter anymore. That's one way to do it. The other way to do it is to put extra characters. Now with extra characters, you have to be a little careful because you can't use the same extra characters on every single password. Otherwise, there's software out there that will detect those same characters and realize that they're added to each and every password, and the person is going to try what's not, what's not in between that pattern, and it's going to be the real password. So you can see on the screen here at the bottom, I did add an instance of that where, the first one I have an AB, the second one I have a Q4, and it ends with, a T at the end of this one and a Y at the end of that one or whatever, a ZT or a 2Y, but the password is actually this in between those. So if you do it that way where you're just randomizing the characters that you're adding, it doesn't matter. The key is you just have to randomize them. You just know you're going to peel off, like, in this case, it's the first two and the last two of every single password that's there. That's the pattern. You got extra characters added that aren't needed, so your password is this in between those. That's a way of simply recording your passwords without physically writing them down to their entirety. Me personally, I use that. I do have paper copies of this just in case I lose that USB key because I'm not going to remember every single one. But again, I know that paper, again, it's the same thing as the text file. I know what's missing. I know where it's missing or what's added. I'll be honest, I even tell people I use a combination of both. I have missing characters and added characters. Good luck figuring out what's missing, what's added, and where it is. At some point, I may actually post one of those online and offer a fee to see if someone can actually figure it out, just because I'm curious. But for someone to do it would be very, very impressed. I would be very impressed with it. So anyways, that's how I store my passwords. I don't believe in the online stuff. So why do we recommend 10 characters? Well, this shows you the hardware that is used to brute force a password. And what brute forcing is basically taking every single possible combination of whatever that password could be and running through it. How fast can we run through it before we get the right password? That's basically what it is. So you can see we used to recommend 7 digits. Well, right now with the current hardware that is available now, it will take 31 seconds to get through a 7-digit password, every possible combination of that using numbers, letters, lowercase, symbols. It's going to be 31 seconds. That's how fast it can get done with the hardware that's available right now. So then we jumped it up to 9. Well, you can see 9 is at 2 days. So right now we're recommending 10. 10 is at 5 months currently. I will say that's more likely right now because there was some new hardware that just came out recently. That's probably more like maybe 3.5 months. So they already caught up on 1.5 months of that. That's why I'm saying probably by mid-year, we're going to be in the 12 and 14 year range because you can see it's going to take about 3,000 years right now to get that, or 6 million years. Obviously that number is going to go down a little with the hardware speeds, but you're not going to get into these red areas where it's less than a year to guess that. So that's why we recommend that. That leads us on to multi-factor. Multi-factor is basically the concept of something you know and something you have. The something you know is your username and password. The something you have is usually a code on your phone that's generated, or it could be a push saying, hey, is this you? And verify that you're trying to log in. This is an extra layer of security. If you're not using this, I highly recommend you do use it. It is not 100% foolproof, but it will stop. I'm going to say, I know the screen says 90%. It's probably going to stop about 85% of the hacker attempts, and I'll explain why here shortly. So this really goes into something that the bad guys are starting to leverage. It's called MFA fatigue. And what this is, this only works if your credentials have been compromised already. So what does that mean? That means your username and password has been compromised. The bad guys know what that is. And the only thing that's stopping them right now is your multi-factor. And this works if you have push notifications. So what that is it basically sends either a text to your phone, or it sends, hey, is this you trying to log in? Hey, is this you? Is this you? Approve, approve, approve. What they do is they send multiple. They keep sending all these requests to you to the point where you get frustrated and hit approve, and you've just let the bad guys in past your MFA. If this happens to you, first and foremost, change your username or change your password for whatever account is prompting you, because your credentials are compromised. That's the only way this will work. And then second of all, don't hit blindly hit that. Bring it to someone's attention that, you know what, my account's been compromised. I need to change my password. I'm not going to hit accept. Turn your phone off if it bothers you that much, because that is the only thing that's saving you right now, is the fact that you didn't hit approve. So just be aware of that the bad guys are leveraging this. So with that, we're going to quickly go through here. Some reminders. Obviously, don't click any links that are within emails. Verify the person is who they claim to be. For financial requests, make sure you're using strong passwords and MFA. Store your passwords securely, whether that's with an online manager or not. That's completely up to you. Make sure you're disabling accounts for any employees that leave on their own or are terminated, and make sure that your data is regularly getting backed up. That's your only saving grace in the event of a ransomware attack, if it is successful. So hopefully that gives you some ideas on how to better stop potential falling victim to some of the hackers. The one thing I will say is anybody that's attended this will get a certificate of completion, so you can use that for compliance issues if you need to. If you're interested in more security stuff that is not only business oriented but could be useful from a personal side, you can check out, there's some audio podcasts that are on our YouTube channel. They're about 15-20 minutes, real quick listens that show you some things about public wireless, that the security risks there, also some more Facebook things to stay away from. So let me see here at the end there. Okay, so we have a question here. Let me see here. Sometimes I see emails with yellow banner and the sender is using work email and he's an insider. How do we make it clear? You shouldn't, Mohammed, you shouldn't be getting that. If they're either sending it from an outside account or something isn't right there, because if it was actually coming through Microsoft Exchange, the M365 environment, you wouldn't be getting that email if they were truly using the M365. The only thing they might be doing is a relay. There might be a relay or something in between there that might be causing that. But what I would do is reach out to us and let us know, and we'll have an engineer take a look at that for you. And that shouldn't be happening if it's being routed internally here. So let me see. Is there any other questions? I do not see any other questions here. You're welcome, Mohammed. So that pretty much is it. I thank you guys for your time. Sorry we went just a tad over. But if you do have any questions that come up after the fact, you can just send them to info@PCATG, and I'll be happy to get back with you on the answers for that. We hold these monthly. They do change because the bad guys change their tactics, so I recommend checking these out at least every once in a while if you're able to. So thank you for attending, and have a great rest of your Friday, and have a happy weekend. Take care, everybody. Thank you.